Welcome to a quiet journey through a land of ancient history and modern wonders. Before we begin our exploration, I invite you to settle into your blankets. Find that perfect spot where your body feels light and at ease. Let's start by finding a soft, rhythmic pace for your breathing. Breathe in slowly through your nose, feeling the cool air fill your lungs. And exhale gently through your mouth, releasing any tension from your day. In and out. There is no rush here. The world outside can wait. Tonight, we are traveling to a small but extraordinary sliver of the world. Israel is a country of remarkable contrasts. To give you a sense of its scale, it is roughly the size of the American state of New Jersey. It is small enough that you could traverse its entire length in a single day's drive. And yet, despite its modest size, it contains an incredibly diverse range of climates and landscapes. Within its borders, you can find snow-dusted mountains, fertile green valleys, Mediterranean coastlines, and vast, silent deserts. It is a place where nature has packed a world's worth of variety into a tiny corner of the map. In the north, the air might be crisp and scented with pine, while just a few hours to the south, the heat of the desert sun creates a shimmering, still horizon. This land occupies a very special place on our planet. It sits at the unique junction where three great continents meet: Europe, Asia, and Africa. For millions of years, it has served as a natural land bridge, a corridor for the movement of life and culture across the globe. Because of this, the soil itself feels heavy with the weight of time, a witness to the countless footsteps of both animals and people that have crossed it over the millennia. It is a geographic crossroads, a place where the biology and geology of three different worlds overlap and intertwine. As we begin to move through this landscape, imagine we are shifting our gaze from the wide blue perspective of a satellite map down to the very texture of the ground. We are leaving the bird's eye view behind and descending toward the earth. We are moving away from the bustling cities and toward the quiet, still places where the geology of the world tells a much older story. We are traveling toward a place where the air grows heavy and the water stands perfectly still, deep in the heart of the Great Rift Valley. Feel the transition from the cool coastal breeze to the dry, ancient warmth of the inland basin. Before we drift further into the stillness of this ancient basin, I invite you to gently tap the like button or subscribe to our channel if you are finding peace in these words. It is a quiet way to ensure we can continue these journeys together, night after night. But for now, there is nothing more for you to do but listen and breathe. Breathe in the cool, imaginary air of the valley, and let your mind wander to the edge of a great blue expanse. We are descending now, moving down past the invisible markers of sea level deeper into the Great Rift Valley. We are approaching the Dead Sea, a place of profound geological silence. It is officially the lowest point on the Earth's dry surface, sitting more than 430 meters, about 1,400 feet, below the level of the Mediterranean Sea. As you descend toward its shores, the air actually becomes thicker and richer in oxygen. The atmospheric pressure increases slightly, creating a natural sense of calm, almost as if the atmosphere itself is tucking you in. It is a heavy, quiet air that seems to dampen the sounds of the outside world, leaving only the soft rhythm of your own breathing. The water before us is a deep, striking blue, but it holds a secret within its chemistry. It is nearly 10 times saltier than the world's oceans. This extreme salinity creates a world where life as we know it, the silver flash of fish, or the earth swaying of green seaweed, cannot exist. It is a sterile environment, but one of immense mineral beauty. Along the shoreline, you can see white crystalline formations where the salt has baked under the sun, creating jagged sculptures that look like frozen lace or fallen stars. The water doesn't ripple like a mountain lake. It moves with a slow, heavy grace, more like liquid silk than common water. It is perfectly still, a mirror for the pale sky above. Because the water is so saturated with salt and minerals, its density is incredibly high. If you were to wade into these still waters, you would find that you cannot sink. The water pushes you upward with an incredible, invisible force. You could lie back and rest on the surface as if you were reclining on a soft liquid cushion. People float here effortlessly, their limbs feeling weightless, suspended in a warm, mineral-rich embrace. It is a place where the struggle against gravity simply ceases. You can imagine yourself drifting there, perfectly supported, with the warm sun on your face and the heavy, salty water holding you up without any movement required from you. You are light, buoyant, and completely at rest. As we move away from the water's edge, the silence seems to deepen. The damp mineral scent of the sea begins to fade, replaced by the dry, clean smell of ancient stone. The transition from the water to the land is stark and beautiful. We are leaving the mirrored surface of the sea behind and stepping into the vast, sun-drenched expanse of the Judean Desert. The ground beneath our feet changes from salt crust to fine, pale dust and rugged limestone. The air remains still, but the landscape begins to rise in great, dramatic cliffs that hem in the valley, casting long, cool shadows as the sun moves across the sky. We are entering a world of golden rock and hidden secrets, a place where the very dryness of the air has its own story to tell. As we step deeper into the Judean Desert, the landscape opens up into a vast, silent tapestry of ochre, tan, and gold. The air here feels different, lighter, crisper, and entirely devoid of the humidity we felt by the water. This is because the Judean Desert is what scientists call a rain shadow desert, a beautiful and quiet quirk of geography. To the west, the Judean mountains ooze like a protective barrier of stone. As the moist air travels from the Mediterranean Sea, it meets these high peaks and is forced to climb. As the air rises, it cools, and the clouds release their rain on the western side of the mountains, nourishing the forests and fields there. By the time the air crosses the summit and descends toward us, it has lost its moisture. It arrives here dry and warm, creating this unique, arid environment that has remained largely unchanged for eons. You can almost feel the presence of the mountain range behind you, holding back the storms and leaving us in this peaceful, sun-drenched pocket of the world. Despite this scarcity of rain, the desert is not without its hidden wonders. If you follow the scent of damp stone and the sound of a gentle murmur, you might stumble upon a place like En-Gedi. It is a lush emerald oasis tucked into the folds of the desert's rugged cliffs. Here, ancient springs bubble up from deep underground, creating a sudden and striking contrast to the surrounding dusk. In En-Gedi, the world turns a vivid, refreshing green. Wild ferns cling to the wet rocks, and tall acacia trees provide soft, dappled shade. You can hear the rhythmic, melodic splash of waterfalls as they tumble down the canyon walls into deep, turquoise pools. It is a place of profound refreshment, where the desert's heat is replaced by a cool, moist breeze. For thousands of years, travelers have stopped here to rest, finding peace in the sound of the water and the sight of the desert ibex grazing peacefully on the tender grass. Away from the hidden springs, the desert air returns to its absolute, unwavering dryness. This stability is perhaps the desert's most remarkable gift to history, because the humidity remains so low and the temperature inset, the deep limestone caves, stays so constant. The air acts as a natural preservative. In most parts of the world, organic materials like leather, wood, or parchment would succumb to mold and decay within a few decades. But here, the air is so still and dry that time seems to lose its power to destroy. This unique chemistry of the atmosphere allowed fragile scrolls written by hand thousands of years ago to remain perfectly legible, their ink almost as dark as the day it was first applied. The desert, in its silent wisdom, kept these records safe in the darkness for 2 millennia. It waited patiently, sheltering the wisdom of the past within the stone walls of its many caves, protecting them from the sun, the wind, and the damp. High above the valley floor, tucked into the sides of the crumbling cliffs, these small, dark openings held a secret that would eventually bridge the gap between the ancient world and our own. As we look toward the rocky heights of Qumran, we can begin to imagine the incredible journey of the scrolls that were hidden there, preserved by the very breath of the desert itself. In the quiet shadow of the cliffs near the ancient settlement of Qumran, the world held its breath for centuries. It was here, in 11 distinct caves carved into the rugged limestone and marl, that one of the greatest archaeological treasures was found. These caves, some perched high above the valley floor and others tucked into the crumbling hillsides, served as silent guardians for the Dead Sea Scrolls. Imagine the profound stillness inside those dark chambers, where the air remained perfectly calm and cool, undisturbed by the passage of empires, the rise of cities, or the changing of seasons. The caves were like small pockets of eternity, tucked away from the noise of the world. Within these 11 caves, researchers eventually identified approximately 981 different manuscripts. It is a staggering collection of human thought and history, written primarily on parchment made from carefully prepared animal skins, with some portions on papyrus, and even a unique, fragile scroll made of hammered copper. Each piece of writing, whether a long, flowing scroll or a tiny postage stamp-sized fragment, tells a story of a community that sought solitude in the desert, much like we seek a moment of quiet and reflection now. The scrolls include everything from ancient hymns and prayers to detailed records of daily life, all preserved in the absolute silence of the Judean wilderness. The secret to their survival lay not just in the dry desert air, but in the humble vessels that held them. Many of the scrolls were carefully placed inside tall, cylindrical clay jars. These jars were crafted from the very earth of the region, shaped by hand and fired in kilns until they became hard and protective. With their tight-fitting lids, they created a microenvironment, a safe dark cocoon that shielded the fragile scrolls from the destructive power of light. and any stray whispers of humidity. The thick walls of the earthenware jars acted as a sturdy barrier against the heat of the day and the chill of the night, keeping the temperature inside remarkably steady for 2,000 years. In the deep darkness of the caves, protected by these earthen sentinels, the ink remained vivid on the page and the parchment remained supple. It is a beautiful testament to the simple effectiveness of ancient technology, working in harmony with the natural environment to defy the slow erosion of time. As we leave the quiet caves of Qumran behind, we travel further south, where the landscape begins to open up into a vast, sun-baked expanse. The Judean desert gradually gives way to the even more immense and ancient reaches of the Negev. Here, the geology changes once more, revealing a land of sweeping plains, jagged mountains, and strange, beautiful formations that feel almost otherworldly in their scale and silence. The earth beneath us becomes older and more rugged, inviting us to explore the deeper mysteries of the southern wilderness, where the ground itself tells a story of millions of years of wind and water. As we continue our journey southward, the horizon begins to stretch even wider, and the air takes on a deeper, more profound stillness. We have entered the Negev, a vast and ancient wilderness that forms the triangular southern half of the land. To truly understand the scale of this place, imagine that this desert alone covers more than half of the country's entire landmass. It is a world of its own, a sprawling canvas of flint, limestone, and sandstone that has remained largely unchanged for eons. In the soft light of the late afternoon, the desert doesn't feel empty. Instead, it feels full of presence, a quiet witness to the slow, patient passage of time. Take a slow, deep breath and imagine the vastness of this open space surrounding you, offering a sense of infinite room to simply be. Within this immense landscape, we find geological wonders that exist nowhere else on our planet, except for a few instances in the neighboring Sinai Peninsula. These are the Machteshim, a Hebrew word for what are often called erosion craters. Unlike the craters on the moon, which were formed by the violent impact of meteorites, or volcanic craters formed by frost and ash, a Machtesh is a gentle gift of water and time. Millions of years ago, this land was covered by a great shallow sea. As the waters receded and the ground was gradually pushed upward by the movements of the earth, the softer inner layers of rock were slowly washed away by ancient rivers, while the harder outer rim remained standing like a protective wall. The result is a hollowed-out valley of breathtaking proportions, a window into the very heart of the Earth's history. The most magnificent and famous of these is Machtesh Ramon. As you stand on its high northern edge, the ground simply falls away, revealing a valley so large it humbles the spirit. It stretches for 40 kilometers, a distance so great that the far side often fades into a soft, hazy blue. From high above, this giant crater is shaped remarkably like a long, elongated heart, pulsing with the silent energy of the desert. The floor of the crater is a natural mosaic of colors: deep ochre, burnt orange, and pale violet, painted by the different minerals and ancient volcanic rocks that have been exposed after millions of years of hiding beneath the surface. It is a landscape that feels both alien and deeply grounding. As the sun begins to dip lower toward the horizon, the shadows inside Machtesh Ramon grow long and soft, filling the deep crevices with shades of indigo and charcoal. The heat of the day radiates gently from the sun-baked stones, warming the cooling air as it brushes against your skin. There is a profound sense of peace here, a silence so thick and heavy that it seems to wrap around you like a soft blanket. The sky above begins to transition from a brilliant turquoise to a deep velvety violet. One by one, the first stars begin to prick through the fading light, signaling the arrival of a night that is clearer and darker than almost anywhere else in the region. We find ourselves standing at the edge of this ancient, heart-shaped cradle, looking up as the first flickers of the cosmos begin to reveal themselves in the gathering dark. As the last traces of the sun's warmth fade from the horizon, a deep, velvety darkness settles over the Negev. It is a darkness that is rare in our modern world, a true and profound night that invites the mind to rest and the spirit to expand. This vast desert has been officially recognized as an international dark sky park, a title given only to those special places on Earth where the night is preserved in its most natural and pristine state. In the heart of the Ramon crater, there are no streetlights, no neon signs, and no glowing screens to interrupt the view. There is only the vast open canopy of the cosmos, stretching from one horizon to the other. Take a moment to imagine yourself lying back on the cool, still sand, looking upward into that infinite void. Because the desert air is so exceptionally dry and the atmosphere so stable, the light from distant suns travels to your eyes with incredible clarity. The stars do not just twinkle, they appear as steady, brilliant jewels set against a backdrop of deepest obsidian. Away from the humidity and pollution of the coast, the air is so transparent that you can see the Milky Way stretching across the heavens like a luminous river of silver dust. It is so vivid and textured that it feels as though you could reach out and touch the very edge of our galaxy. The silence of the desert at night is absolute, broken only by the occasional soft sigh of a cooling breeze, allowing you to feel completely synchronized with the slow, rhythmic turning of the earth. This profound isolation and the unique landscape of the Negev have caught the attention of more than just stargazers and dreamers. To the scientific community, this terrain is a mirror of another world. The rocky, windswept plains and the mineral-rich soil share a striking similarity with the surface of Mars. Because of these geological parallels, the desert serves as a vital proving ground for the future of space travel. In a project known as D-Mars, researchers and ramonauts live in a specialized, self-contained habitat tucked away in the desert's folds. Here, they simulate life on the red planet, conducting experiments and testing equipment in conditions that mimic the harsh, beautiful loneliness of a Martian valley. The reddish tint of the soil and the profound stillness of the crater provide a perfect terrestrial laboratory for understanding how humans might one day live and work among the stars. As you visualize the dry, iron-rich earth beneath the feet of these simulated explorers, you might wonder how such a parched landscape could ever support life closer to home. The soil is ancient and dusty, a testament to the power of the sun and the absence of rain. It is a land that demands ingenuity and respect, and yet it is precisely this lack of water that sparked a revolution in how we understand the relationship between the earth and the things that grow upon it. The challenge of the desert did not lead to despair, but to a quiet, brilliant innovation that would eventually change the way the entire world nurtures its crops. From the dry red dust of the Negev, we turn our attention now to the invisible threads of life that began to weave their way through this landscape, bringing the promise of green to the heart of the brown wilderness. Imagine the vast, dry expanse of the Negev once more, where the earth is ancient and the sun is a constant companion. In a land where every drop of water is a precious gift, the people who live here have had to become masters of conservation. This necessity gave birth to one of the most significant agricultural breakthroughs of the modern era: drip irrigation. Today, Israel is recognized as a world leader in this field, sharing a quiet revolution with the rest of the planet, a method of teaching the earth how to grow more while using far less. The story of this innovation begins with a simple, quiet observation, the kind that only happens when one takes the time to look closely at the small details of nature. In the 1930s, an engineer named Simcha Blas noticed something peculiar while walking past a row of trees. One tree stood out from all the others. It was noticeably taller. Its leaves were a deeper shade of green, and it seemed to vibrate with a health that its neighbors lacked. Curious, Blas knelt down to find the source of this vitality. He discovered a small, unassuming leak in a nearby water pipe. That tiny, steady drip, delivered directly to the soil near the tree's roots, was providing a constant, gentle source of hydration that the surrounding dry earth could not offer. It took years of thought and refinement, but by the 1960s, this observation was transformed into a sophisticated technology. Instead of flooding entire fields with water, a loud and heavy method that leads to massive evaporation and runoff. Drip irrigation uses a network of narrow plastic tubes. These tubes feature small calibrated emitters that release water slowly, drop by drop, exactly where the plant needs it most. Think about the quiet rhythm of those drops. It is a slow, steady pulse of life. Because the water is delivered with such precision, it doesn't sit on the surface to be baked away by the heat of the day. Instead, it soaks deep into the cool darkness of the earth, reaching the thirsty roots directly. This method is remarkably efficient, reducing water waste by up to 70% compared to traditional farming techniques. It ensures that not a single drop is lost to the wind or the sun. As you breathe deeply and slowly, imagine the silence of a vast vineyard or an orchard of citrus trees. Beneath the canopy of leaves, hidden in the shadows of the soil, millions of these tiny emitters are working in unison. They are like a gentle, hidden circulatory system for the landscape, whispering nourishment to the crops in the heat of the afternoon. This technology has allowed the desert to bloom in ways that once seemed impossible, turning patches of parched dust into vibrant corridors of green. But even with such efficient use of every drop, a land with limited rainfall requires a vast and steady supply to fill those miles of tubing. To sustain the fields, the groves, and the people, the focus of science eventually had to shift from the dry soil toward the horizon. To find enough water for a thirsty world, it became necessary to look toward the greatest reservoir of all, the deep, salt-rich expanse of the sea. Imagine the vast blue expanse of the Mediterranean Sea. The waves roll in with a slow, rhythmic pulse, washing over the sand and retreating back into the deep. For centuries, this water was a beautiful but unreachable resource, too salty to drink, too mineral-rich for the delicate roots of most crops. But today, that same sea has become the very lifeblood of the land. Through the quiet wonders of modern chemistry and engineering, the salt is stripped away, leaving behind water that is as clear and pure as a mountain spring. In a remarkable feat of sustainability, about 80% of the water used in homes across the country now comes directly from the sea. It is a process called desalination, and it has transformed the way the region thinks about its most precious resource. Instead of waiting for the clouds to gather or the winter rains to fall, the water is harvested from the tides day and night in a steady, silent flow. One of the most impressive places where this happens is the Sorek desalination plant. It is one of the largest seawater reverse osmosis plants in the entire world. If you were to stand within its walls, you wouldn't hear the roar of heavy machinery, but rather a low mechanical hum, a soothing white noise that signifies the movement of millions of gallons of water. Here, the sea is pushed through incredibly fine membranes, filters so dense and delicate that they allow the tiny molecules of water to pass through while holding back the larger molecules of salt and minerals. It is a slow, methodical cleansing. From the moment a wave is drawn from the Mediterranean to the moment it emerges as high-quality drinking water, less than 90 minutes have passed. In just an hour and a half, the wild, briny ocean is tamed and softened, ready to flow through the pipes into the homes and out into the thirsty fields. Think of that journey for a moment. A single drop of water, once tossing in the crest of a salty wave, is filtered, purified, and sent on a quiet path through a network of underground veins. Within 90 minutes, that drop might be filling a glass on a kitchen table, or it might be making its way back to those narrow plastic tubes we spoke of earlier, the drip irrigation lines waiting in the soil. This abundance of water, reclaimed from the sea, does more than just quench the thirst of the people. It breathes life into the agriculture of the region. The steady supply allows farmers to plan for the future with a sense of calm and certainty. It feeds the vast groves and the experimental greenhouses where scientists work to create new varieties of fruits and vegetables, plants that are designed to be as resilient and efficient as the water systems that sustain them. As we move from the hum of the desalination plants back to the quiet rows of the green fields, we can see the literal fruits of this labor, beginning with a small, bright red wonder that has found its way onto dinner plates all across the globe. As the purified water reaches the roots of the plants, it transforms the dry earth into a garden of vibrant colors and delicate scents. This quiet miracle of growth is perhaps most visible in the development of the cherry tomato. You might see these small, bright red globes in your local market and think of them as a simple gift of nature, but their journey to your table is a fascinating story of patience and science. While small, wild tomatoes have existed for centuries, the modern cherry tomato, the one that is perfectly sweet, uniformly round, and stays fresh on your counter for days, was largely perfected and commercialized by Israeli scientists at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. In the 1970s and 80s, researchers like Professor Nachum Kader and Professor Haim Rabinowitz began a mission to create a fruit that could thrive in a warm climate while remaining resilient enough for the global market. They focus their efforts specifically on the ripening process. In the natural world, many fruits ripen and soften very quickly, which makes them difficult to transport over long distances without them becoming bruised or spoiled. These scientists worked to slow down that internal biological clock, allowing the cherry tomato to maintain its firmness and flavor for a much longer period. This breakthrough meant that the tiny, flavorful fruits could be packed into crates and shipped across the world, arriving at their destination as fresh as the day they were picked. When you bite into a cherry tomato today, you are tasting decades of careful observation and a deep understanding of how plants interact with time, light, and genetics. But the bounty of the land extends far beyond the vine. If you were to walk through the orchards in the early morning, when the dew is still heavy on the leaves, you might find the Galileo melon. This fruit, named for the northern region where it was developed, is celebrated for its incredible sweetness and its smooth, fragrant rind. These melons seem to hold the essence of the summer sun within them, their pale green flesh offering a cooling, refreshing sweetness that is prized by people all over the world. Nearby, you might find groves of or clementines. The word or means light in Hebrew, a fitting name for a fruit with such a bright, radiant orange color. These clementines were specifically developed to be easy to peel, with a thin skin that gives way to juicy, almost entirely seedless segments. They have become one of the most successful agricultural exports of the region, bringing a burst of warmth and a reminder of the Mediterranean sun to people living in much colder, darker parts of the world during the winter months. These modern crops, with their scientific origins and their global reach, represent a new chapter in the history of the land. They are the result of a partnership between the ancient soil and modern technology, a way to make the most of every drop of water and every hour of golden sunlight. It is a peaceful, productive harmony that feeds millions. Yet, as we move through these vibrant, productive fields, we are reminded that they are only part of a much longer story. The landscape is also home to much older inhabitants, beings that do not need the intervention of a laboratory to survive the passing of the centuries. As we leave the modern greenhouses and the neatly irrigated rows behind, our journey takes us toward the rolling hills, where the silver-green leaves of the olive trees shimmer softly in the breeze. These trees have stood as silent witnesses to history, their roots reaching deep into the rocky earth, connecting the innovations of the present to the enduring ancient strength of the past. As we step into the groves of the Galilee, the air feels cooler, held in the shade of trees that have stood for a millennium. These olive trees are not merely plants, they are living monuments. Their trunks are thick and twisted, deeply furrowed with age, resembling ancient sculptures carved by time and wind. Some of these trees are estimated to be over 1,000 years old, their roots reaching deep into the limestone soil to find moisture during the long, dry summers. If these trees could speak, they would tell stories of countless generations who have gathered beneath their boughs to harvest the bitter fruit, pressing it into the golden oil that has fueled lamps and nourished bodies since antiquity. There is a profound stillness here, a sense that time moves more slowly among the olives, tethered to the slow, rhythmic cycle of the seasons. This enduring presence of the olive tree is part of a much larger transformation of the landscape. While many regions across the globe have struggled with the loss of their woodlands, this land tells a different story. Remarkably, Israel is one of the very few countries in the world that entered the 21st century with a net gain in its total number of trees. This was not a matter of chance, but the result of a dedicated, century-long effort to heal the soil and restore the green canopy that had been lost over centuries of overgrazing and neglect. Millions of saplings were planted by hand, one by one, into the rocky hillsides, a quiet act of faith in the future. You can see the results of this labor most clearly on the slopes of Mount Carmel. Known as the Evergreen Mountain, its ridges are now draped in thick, fragrant forests of Aleppo pine and oak. As you walk along the soft, needle-covered paths, the scent of resin fills the air, mingling with the earthy aroma of the forest floor. These pine forests, largely the result of extensive 20th century reforestation efforts, provide a sanctuary for wildlife and a place of rest for the soul. The wind sighs through the high branches, a gentle, rushing sound like the distant sea, reminding us of the patience required to grow a forest from nothing. As the year progresses, the colors of these wooded hills begin to shift. The deep, steady green of the pines and the silver gray of the olive leaves serve as a backdrop for a changing tapestry of light and hue. In the height of summer, the landscape takes on a tawny golden glow, the grasses drying under the sun while the trees remain steadfast. Then, as the first rains of autumn arrive, the earth drinks deeply, and a vibrant, fresh green begins to creep back across the valleys. The light softens, casting long purple shadows across the stone, preparing the land for the quiet rest of winter. It is a cycle of constant renewal, a slow breathing of the earth that prepares the eyes for the sudden, breathtaking arrival of new life. As the very first hints of color begin to stir in the cool, crisp air of the coming spring, as the winter rains begin to taper off and the air holds a lingering, crisp chill, a quiet miracle unfolds across the rocky slopes and greening valleys. Before the rest of the landscape has fully stirred from its seasonal slumber, the almond trees, known in Hebrew as shaked, begin their delicate awakening. Every February, these trees are the very first to blossom, acting as the heralds of a new cycle. They stand as silent sentinels of the coming spring, their dark, slender branches suddenly heavy with fragile petals that range from a pure, snowy white to a soft, blushing pink. For a few fleeting weeks, the Hillside of the Galilee and the Jerusalem mountains look as if they have been dusted with a light, fragrant snow. To walk among them is to experience a profound sense of peace. The ground is often still damp from the morning dew, and the only sound is the gentle hum of the first bees visiting the nectar-rich flowers. The almond blossom is a symbol of watchfulness and promise, a reminder that even in the heart of winter, life is preparing to bloom with renewed vigor. As you travel further south, where the Judean hills begin to soften into the rolling plains of the northern Negev, a different and equally breathtaking transformation takes place. This region, which for much of the year is characterized by its muted earth tones and golden grasses, suddenly erupts into a sea of brilliant scarlet. This is the season of the Darum Adam, or the Red South Festival. Millions of wild red anemones, known locally as kalanit, blanket the earth in a carpet so thick and vibrant it seems to pulse with light under the soft winter sun. These flowers are a cherished national treasure, their delicate, velvety petals surrounding a deep black center. They sway in unison with the desert breeze, turning the landscape into a shimmering, ruby-colored ocean that stretches toward the horizon. It is a brief, spectacular moment when the arid ground feels lush and overflowing, a hidden vitality rising up from the soil to greet the light. This explosion of color is just a small glimpse into the incredible botanical diversity found in this narrow strip of land. Despite its modest size, Israel is home to more than 2,800 species of wild plants. This is an extraordinarily high density of flora, one of the highest in the world for an area of this scale. Because the land sits at the geographic crossroads of three continents, Europe, Asia, and Africa, it serves as a meeting point for vastly different botanical worlds. In a single afternoon's walk, you might find a delicate Mediterranean orchid tucked into a shaded limestone crevice just a short distance from a hardy, salt-tolerant desert shrub. Each plant has carved out its own tiny niche, adapted over millennia to the specific chemistry of the soil and the subtle shifts in the microclimate. The scent of these thousands of blooming species, the sweetness of the almond, the earthy perfume of the anemones, and the sharp, clean tang of wild herbs like hyssop and sage drifts upward on the warming air. This invisible river of fragrance rises into the vast open corridors of the sky, serving as a silent guide for those who are watching from above. As the land below turns green and vibrant, it becomes a beacon for millions of travelers who are just beginning their long journey back across the horizon. The fragrance of the blooming hills and the warming earth rises high into the atmosphere, meeting the invisible currents of the wind. Above this narrow bridge of land, the sky becomes a crowded highway, a silent but magnificent thoroughfare for millions of travelers. Israel occupies a unique position on the globe, acting as one of the world's most critical bottlenecks for bird migration. Because the vast, open expanse of the Mediterranean Sea lies to the west, and the harsh, waterless deserts stretch out to the east, hundreds of species of birds are funneled through this slender corridor of green and gold. Twice every year, in the spring and the autumn, the air up above is filled with the rhythmic beating of wings. It is estimated that over 500 million birds, storks, honey buzzards, pelicans, and tiny songbirds navigate this aerial path, moving between their summer nesting grounds in Europe and Asia and their winter homes in Africa. They rely on the warm air rising from the land, the thermals that allow them to glide effortlessly for hours, conserving their energy for the thousands of miles yet to come. To look up during these seasons is to see the sky transformed into a living tapestry, a constant, quiet movement of life seeking the horizon. As these weary travelers descend to find food and rest, many are drawn to the northern reaches of the country, specifically to the Hula Valley. This lush basin, surrounded by the Galilee Mountains and the Golan Heights, serves as a vital sanctuary. Once a vast wetland that was partially drained and then carefully restored, the Hula Valley is now one of the most important stopover points on the planet. For the birds, it is a place of safety and abundance, a much-needed interval of peace in an arduous journey across continents. Among the most spectacular visitors are the common cranes. Tens of thousands of these elegant, long-legged birds gather in the valley's shallow waters and fields. As the sun begins to dip behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of violet and soft orange, the cranes return to the water to sleep. Their haunting, trumpeting calls echo through the quiet valley, a prehistoric sound that feels both ancient and deeply peaceful. They stand together in the thousands, their silhouettes reflected in the still silver surface of the water, a massive community resting in safety before the next leg of their journey. The Hula Valley offers them the strength to continue, a place of rest in a long and taxing voyage. But while these millions of birds are merely passing through, pausing only long enough to catch their breath and find a meal, they share this landscape with others who never leave. Down on the ground, away from the high-altitude winds, a different cast of characters makes its living in the crags of the mountains and the hidden corners of the desert. These are the permanent residents of the land, creatures whose lives are woven into the very fabric of the stones and the soil, shaped by the same harsh beauty that guides the birds from above. As we leave the wetlands of the north and travel back toward the sun-drenched cliffs of the south, we find the animals that have mastered the art of living on the edge of the world. As we leave the wetlands of the north and travel back toward the sun-drenched cliffs of the south, we find the animals that have mastered the art of living on the edge of the world. In the Judean desert, specifically near the refreshing springs and steep precipices of Engedi, a remarkable creature makes its home among the sheer limestone walls. This is the Nubian ibex, a sturdy and graceful desert mountain goat that seems to defy the laws of gravity. To see them is to see the very spirit of the desert captured in form. They are often found resting on narrow ledges or navigating paths that seem far too thin for any living thing to tread. With their magnificent backward curving horns and coats that match the dusty gold of the rocks, they blend almost perfectly into the landscape, becoming visible only when they move. To watch an ibex move is to witness a master class in balance and biological engineering. Their ability to climb near vertical rock faces is not merely a matter of strength, but of specialized anatomy. The hooves of the Nubian ibex are uniquely adapted for life on the cliffs. They possess a hard outer rim that can dig into the tiniest of crevices, but it is the underside of the hoof that is truly extraordinary. The center is made of a soft, spongy material, a specialized pad that provides incredible friction. These pads act almost like suction cups, molding themselves to the uneven surface of the stone and gripping the rock with surprising strength. This allows the ibex to leap across chasms and stand securely on inclines that would be impossible for almost any other animal. They move with a quiet, deliberate confidence, their footfalls nearly silent against the ancient stone. Further south, where the cliffs give way to the vast open plains of the Arava Valley, another icon of the desert makes its home. This is the Arabian oryx, a creature of such ethereal beauty that it is often thought to be the historical inspiration for the legend of the unicorn. With its striking white coat, designed to reflect the intense desert sun, and its long, slender, straight horns, the oryx is a vision of grace in a harsh and beautiful environment. There was a time, however, when this majestic animal had vanished from the wild entirely, a victim of overhunting in the mid-20th century. But the story of the Arabian oryx is one of hope and restoration. Through a dedicated international effort and a careful breeding program, the oryx was successfully reintroduced to its ancestral home in the Arava Valley. Today, small herds can be seen moving slowly across the desert floor, their white forms shimmering like mirages against the reddish sands. They are perfectly adapted to this arid world, capable of detecting rainfall from great distances and traveling many miles to find the fresh vegetation that follows a rare desert storm. They are a testament to the resilience of life and the possibility of healing the natural world. The desert is a place of profound stillness, where every movement is purposeful and every breath is a quiet celebration of survival. As the sun begins to dip lower, casting long purple shadows across the sands of the Arava, we follow the gentle slope of the land further south toward the very tip of the country. Here, the golden desert meets a different kind of wilderness, one hidden beneath the surface of the deep blue water. We leave the dry, sun-baked cliffs of the ibex and the open plains of the oryx behind, arriving at the edge of the Red Sea. Here, the desert silence is met by the rhythmic, gentle lapping of waves against the shore, marking the beginning of an entirely different world of wonder. As we stand at the very edge of the water in Islet, the air changes. The dry, dusty scent of the desert is replaced by the crisp, clean fragrance of salt and minerals. The water here is a deep, striking turquoise, so clear that even from the shore you can see the ripples of sand on the seabed below. This is the Gulf of Eilat, a narrow northern arm of the Red Sea, and beneath these gentle waves lies one of the most remarkable biological treasures on our planet. The Gulf of Eilat contains the world's northernmost shallow water coral reef. In most parts of the world, coral reefs are found much closer to the equator, where the sun's rays are most direct and the water remains consistently warm. However, due to the unique shape of the Red Sea and the way warm water circulates through its deep trenches, this small pocket of the ocean provides the perfect sanctuary for corals to flourish far further north than they usually would. It is a fringe reef, meaning it grows very close to the coastline, creating a vibrant underwater garden that begins just a few meters from the shore. As you imagine drifting slowly over the surface of the water, peering down through a mask, you see a world of intricate shapes and soft swaying colors. There are branching corals that look like the antlers of a deer, and massive, rounded brain corals with patterns as complex as a labyrinth. But what makes these corals truly extraordinary is a secret held within their very DNA. Scientists have discovered that the corals in the Gulf of Eilat show a unique and profound resilience to rising water temperatures. While many of the world's great reefs are struggling with the effects of warming oceans, the corals here remain healthy and vibrant. This resilience is believed to be a gift from their ancestors. Thousands of years ago, as these corals migrated north from the Indian Ocean, they had to pass through the southern entrance of the Red Sea, where the water is exceptionally hot. Only the strongest, most heat-tolerant corals survived that journey. Today, their descendants in Eilat possess a thermal threshold that is much higher than the current water temperature, making this reef a vital laboratory for scientists hoping to save coral reefs globally. It is a place of hope, a sanctuary where life has already learned how to thrive in a changing world. The reef is not just a collection of stone and polyps. It is a bustling, quiet metropolis of life. The Red Sea is home to over 1,200 species of fish, a staggering level of diversity for such a small area. As you float in the stillness, you might see a school of bright yellow butterfly fish darting between the crevices, or a solitary regal lionfish with its feathered fins trailing like silk in the current. Approximately 10% of the species found here are endemic, meaning they are found nowhere else on Earth. They have evolved in the isolation of this deep, salty gulf, creating a community of life that is as unique as the desert that surrounds it. The movements of the fish are rhythmic and peaceful, a slow-motion dance through the crystalline water. The sunlight filters down in long, shimmering beams, illuminating the scales of a passing parrotfish, or the shy eyes of a clownfish, nestled within the stinging tentacles of an anemone. Here, the silence of the desert above is mirrored by the silence of the sea below, a world where time seems to slow down, and every breath you take is synchronized with the gentle pulse of the tide. But the water that cradles this southern tip is only one part of the story. To see the full breadth of this land, we must turn our gaze away from the Red Sea and begin a journey back toward the north. We travel along the western edge of the country, leaving the sheltered, deep blues of the Gulf behind as we move toward the vast open horizon of the Mediterranean Sea. The landscape shifts once more, moving from the rugged red mountains of the south to the long sweeping curves of the western coast, where the rhythm of the waves tells a different story of ancient travels and golden sands. As we leave the deep, narrow waters of the Red Sea behind, the air begins to change. The dry, sharp heat of the desert softens, replaced by a gentle, humid breeze that carries the scent of salt and ancient tides. We have traveled across the land to its western edge, where the horizon opens up into the vast rhythmic expanse of the Mediterranean Sea. This coastline, a shimmering ribbon of blue and gold, stretches for roughly 190 kilometers along the country's western border. It is a place of constant movement and quiet transition, where the land meets the water in a long, sun-drenched curve. If you were to walk along the water's edge, you would feel the soft, fine sand beneath your feet, yielding gently with every step. The origin of this sand is a story of a journey so long and so slow that it spans continents and thousands of years. It may surprise you to learn that the golden dunes of these beaches did not begin their life here. Instead, they were born far to the south, in the rugged Ethiopian highlands and the heart of Africa. For eons, the heavy rains of the African interior have weathered the mountains, breaking down quartz rock into tiny microscopic grains. These grains were washed into the Blue Nile and the White Nile, beginning a slow descent through the river's winding path toward Egypt. Once the sand reached the Mediterranean delta, it was caught by the counterclockwise currents of the sea. Like a slow-moving conveyor belt, the water carried the sediment along the coast, eventually depositing it here on these very shores. When you run your hand through the sand, you are touching a piece of a mountain that traveled thousands of miles just to rest beneath the Israeli sun. It is a humbling thought, a reminder of how the earth is interconnected in ways we rarely see. Following the coastline to its northernmost tip, the soft sand eventually gives way to a more dramatic landscape. Here, the Galilee Mountains meet the sea in a sudden vertical drop of brilliant white. This is Rosh Hashanah. Unlike the dark volcanic rocks of the south, these cliffs are made of pure white chalk. Over thousands of years, the relentless energy of the waves has carved a labyrinth of sea grottos into the base of the cliffs. As the tide moves in and out, the water echoes through these natural tunnels with a deep, melodic hum. The sunlight filters through the openings in the rock, turning the water inside the grottos an ethereal, glowing turquoise. It is a place of profound stillness, where the only sound is the rhythmic pulse of the Mediterranean, breathing against the stone. These caves were not built by hands, but by the patient, persistent touch of the sea, eroding the soft chalk inch by inch, until it formed these hollowed-out cathedrals of light and shadow. The natural beauty of the coast has always been a sanctuary, but it has also served as a foundation for human ambition. As the cliffs of Rosh Hashanah stand as a testament to the power of nature, the shores further south tell a story of how people learned to work with that power. For as long as there have been sailors and merchants, this coastline has been a gateway between empires. The same waves that carved the white grottos also carried the ships of the ancient world, seeking a place to land, to build, and to leave a mark that would last for millennia. We move now from the natural formations of the shore to the stone structures that rose from the sand, where ancient engineering sought to tame the wild energy of the sea. As we travel south from the white cliffs of Rosh Hashanah, the coastline begins to reveal the fingerprints of ancient architects who saw these same blue horizons and dared to build something that would withstand the weight of centuries. The natural grottos, carved by the patient hand of the sea, find their human counterpart in the ruins of Caesarea Maritima. This city, rising like a dream from the Mediterranean sands, was the vision of Herod the Great, a man known for his monumental, almost impossible, engineering feats. Before Herod's time, this stretch of coast lacked a natural deep-water bay to protect large ships from the unpredictable temperament of the Mediterranean. To solve this, Herod commissioned the construction of the world's first deep-sea artificial harbor. It was a marvel of the ancient world, stretching out into the deep water to create a safe sanctuary for the massive merchant vessels of the Roman Empire. When you look out over the water today, you can still see the dark outlines of these ancient breakwaters beneath the surface, resting quietly on the seafloor like sleeping giants. The secret to how these structures survived for 2,000 years in the corrosive salt of the sea lies in a remarkable piece of ancient chemistry. To build the foundations, Roman engineers used a special type of volcanic ash cement, often referred to as pozzolana. This ash was transported across the sea from the slopes of Mount Vesuvius in Italy. When mixed with lime and seawater, this volcanic ash triggered a unique chemical reaction that allowed the cement to harden underwater. Instead of eroding, the concrete actually grew stronger over time as the salt water interacted with the minerals in the ash. It is a quiet irony of history that the very force intended to destroy these structures, the sea, served to fortify them, turning soft dust into a stone harder and more durable than many modern materials. Continuing our journey along the coast, we find ourselves in the city of Akko, or Acre, one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the entire world. Akko is a place where time does not move in a straight line, but rather in layers. stacked one on top of the other like the pages of a heavy, ancient book. As you walk through the narrow, winding stone alleys of the Ottoman-era city, you're actually walking on the roofs of a much older world. Beneath the bustling markets and the scent of sea salt and spices lies a hidden crusader city, perfectly preserved under the earth. For centuries, the massive stone halls, refectories, and secret tunnels of the Knights Templar were filled with debris and forgotten, serving as the foundation for the city we see today. It was only through careful excavation that these vaulted ceilings and grand pillars were brought back into the light. Walking through these underground chambers feels like stepping into a pocket of frozen time, where the air is cool and the silence is thick with the presence of those who lived here 800 years ago. The preservation of these sites is not merely a matter of luck, but a testament to the enduring nature of the materials used and the unique conditions of the soil. As we look at these stone arches and sunken harbors, we begin to see how the science of the past remains visible in the present. The study of these places, the way they were built, the way they were lost, and the way they are rediscovered, is a bridge between the people who once stood here and those of us who visit them now in our thoughts. This deep connection to the past leads us naturally into the meticulous world of the modern researchers who work to uncover the stories still hidden just beneath the surface of the earth. As we move further inland, we begin to realize that the very ground beneath our feet is a vast, silent library where every hill and valley holds a story waiting to be read. It is a remarkable scientific fact that Israel contains the highest concentration of archaeological sites per square mile in the entire world. There are tens of thousands of registered locations where history has left its mark, layered one on top of the other like the rings of an ancient tree. When you walk through the countryside, you are rarely more than a few hundred yards from a place where someone lived, worked, or rested thousands of years ago. This density turns the entire landscape into a living museum, where the soil itself is a guardian of human memory. Among the most delicate treasures preserved by this earth are the ancient mosaics found in villas and public buildings across the region. In the quiet, rolling hills of the Galilee lies the ancient city of Zippori, where archaeologists discovered a floor so beautiful it has captured the world's imagination. Known as the Mona Lisa of the Galilee, this mosaic depicts a woman with a gaze so lifelike and serene that she seems to watch you from across the centuries. To create such an image, ancient artists used thousands of tiny, hand-cut colored stones called tesserae. In a very real sense, these were the world's first pixels. Each tiny stone, no larger than a fingernail, was chosen for its specific hue: deep ochre, soft cream, or dusty rose, and placed with such precision that, from a distance, the hard stone softens into the appearance of skin and fabric. It is a slow, meditative form of art, requiring immense patience and a deep understanding of how light interacts with the natural minerals of the earth. While much of this history was uncovered through decades of careful hand digging, modern science has introduced new, gentle ways to see into the past without disturbing the present. Today, archaeologists often use a technology called LIDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging. By flying a drone or a plane over the landscape and pulsing laser light toward the ground, researchers can map the surface of the Earth with incredible accuracy. This light can filter through dense vegetation and trees, revealing the hidden shapes of walls, roads, and foundations that are invisible to the naked eye. It is like a soft, digital X-ray of the landscape, allowing us to see the ghosts of ancient cities lying peacefully beneath the grass and the groves. This uninvasive technology ensures that the history remains protected, undisturbed in its cool, dark cradle of soil until the moment is right to learn its secrets. This preservation of physical history, the stones, the pottery, and the intricate mosaics parallels another kind of preservation that is unique to this land. Just as a city can be buried under layers of dust and then brought back into the light, so too can the intangible heritage of a people. We often think of history as something fixed and finished, but here, the past has a way of breathing again, finding its way into the modern world in ways that seem almost impossible. This bridge between the ancient and the modern is perhaps most visible not in the stones of a wall, but in the very sounds that fill the air. Just as the earth held on to the artifacts of the past, the culture held on to something even more fundamental, its voice. This leads us to one of the most extraordinary stories of cultural science, the way a language that had been silent for nearly 2 millennia was gently coaxed back into the light of day. Take a slow, deep breath and imagine the sound of a voice that has been whispering in the pages of ancient books for 2,000 years, waiting for the right moment to speak aloud once more. This brings us to a phenomenon that is as much a miracle of sociology as it is of linguistics. Hebrew holds a place in the history of human speech that is entirely unique. It is the only known example in the world of a language that was once considered dead, meaning it had no native speakers who used it for daily, secular life, being successfully revived as a national spoken tongue. For nearly 20 centuries, Hebrew was a language of the mind and the spirit. It was used for sacred prayers, for complex poetry, and for deep philosophical debate. But it was not the language used to buy fruit at a market, to discuss the weather, or to tuck a child into bed at night. It lived in a state of quiet, scholarly dignity, preserved in ink and parchment across the globe, yet silent in the streets. This long silence began to change in the late 19th century, largely through the quiet and steady determination of a man named Eliezer ben Yehuda. He believed that for a people to truly be a nation, they needed a common living voice. His dedication to this vision was so absolute that he raised his own son to speak only Hebrew, making the boy the first native speaker of the language in almost 2,000 years. It was a slow, deliberate process, like planting a single seed in soil that had long been dry and watching it gradually, against all odds, turn into a lush forest. Ben Yehuda spent his days and nights compiling the first modern Hebrew dictionary, often working by the soft light of a lamp, carefully bridge building between the ancient world and his own. But waking up a language that had been dormant since the Roman era presented a fascinating scientific and creative challenge. The world of the 19th and 20th centuries was filled with concepts and objects that simply did not exist when the language was last spoken daily. There were no ancient words for electricity, airplane, telephone, or even tomato. To solve this, linguists had to look deep into the mathematical structure of the language. Hebrew is built on a system of three-letter roots which act like DNA, carrying a core meaning that can be modified to create new words. For example, the modern word for airplane, matos, was derived from an ancient root meaning to fly. The word for electricity, kashmal, was rediscovered in the biblical book of Ezekiel, where it was used to describe a mysterious glowing radiance. In this way, the language grew branch by branch, merging the wisdom of the past with the necessities of the modern world. Today, the Academy of the Hebrew Language continues this work, ensuring that the ancient tongue remains flexible and vibrant, constantly evolving to describe the newest discoveries of science and the complexities of modern life. This spirit of adaptation, of taking something fundamental and reimagining it for a new era, did not stop with the revival of words. The same ingenuity that allowed a people to rebuild their ancient language also drove them to look at the world's most complex problems with fresh eyes. Just as they invented new terms to describe the unseen force of electricity, they began to invent new ways to harness the power of information and digital logic. This transition from the evolution of ancient speech to the evolution of modern technology happened naturally as the quiet focus of the scholar met the precision of the engineer. In the laboratories and workshops of this small land, a new kind of language began to take shape. Not one made of sounds and syllables, but one made of light, silicon, and data, designed to connect the entire world in ways never before imagined. The transition from the ancient roots of language to the silent pulses of digital logic happened almost as if it were a natural progression, a steady movement from the spoken word to the encoded signal. Just as the revival of Hebrew required a deep understanding of structure and roots, the development of modern technology in this region has been driven by a search for elegance and efficiency in the invisible world of data. In the closing years of the 20th century, this spirit of invention led to a small device that would change how we carry our stories and our work forever. In 1999, a company called M Systems, based in the heart of this innovative landscape, developed the very first USB flash drive. Before this moment, moving information between computers was often a slow and fragile process, involving large disks that were easily damaged or limited in space. But the flash drive changed everything. It was a tiny, silent sliver of silicon and metal, no larger than a thumb. Yet it could hold the contents of entire bookshelves. Imagine the quiet power of such an object, a way to shrink the vast libraries of human thought into something that could rest in the palm of a hand. It turned data into something portable and personal, a quiet companion to our daily lives that we now take for granted. Yet its origins are rooted in that same desire to make the complex simple and the heavy light. Even deeper within the history of the personal computer lies a connection to the coastal city of Haifa, where the air is often filled with the scent of the sea and the sound of the wind in the pines. In the late 1970s, a dedicated team of engineers in a laboratory there designed the Intel 8088 processor. This tiny chip would eventually become the brain of the very first IBM PC, the machine that essentially launched the era of home computing. When you think of the steady rhythmic hum of those early computers and the soft glow of the first monitors, you're witnessing the legacy of work done in a quiet office overlooking the Mediterranean. It is a reminder that the global digital revolution, which connects us all today, was built on foundations laid in these small, focused spaces where people dared to imagine a more connected future. This persistent culture of curiosity and problem solving has earned the land a modern nickname, the Startup Nation. Today, it holds the highest number of startups per capita in the entire world. It is a place where the density of ideas is as thick as the historical layers of the earth beneath it. In every city and town, there is a constant, gentle pulse of innovation, where people look at the challenges of the world and seek to build a better way forward. It is a landscape defined not just by its ancient white stones and desert sands, but by the fresh ideas that bloom there every single day, like wildflowers appearing after a winter rain. As we move further into our journey, we see that this spirit of invention has begun to turn its gaze inward, toward the most delicate and complex machine of all, the human body. The same precision used to design computer chips and data storage is now being applied to the art of healing. Scientists are finding ways to use these technological languages to communicate with our own biology, seeking to see what was once invisible and to restore what has been lost. We are entering a space where the cold, clear logic of technology meets the warm, living pulse of the human heart, creating new wonders that exist not just on a screen, but within the very breath and bone of our existence. Imagine a device no larger than a vitamin, smooth and easy to swallow. This is the pill cam, a marvel of miniaturization born from the same expertise that once guided missiles with pinpoint precision. Once inside, it begins a quiet, illuminated journey through the winding paths of the digestive system, a place once difficult to see without invasive procedures. As it travels, it captures thousands of high-definition images, acting as a tiny, silent witness to the inner workings of our biology. It drifts peacefully through the body, transmitting what it sees to a recorder worn by the patient who can go about their day in comfort. It is a testament to how technology can be both powerful and incredibly gentle, respecting the sanctity of the body while seeking to understand its deepest mysteries. From these hidden depths, we look toward the grace of movement on the outside. For many, the ability to stand and walk is a gift taken for granted. But for those with spinal cord injuries, it is a dream that once seemed out of reach. Israeli researchers, driven by a desire to restore this fundamental human experience, developed the ReWalk. This is a sophisticated robotic exoskeleton, a frame of sensors and motors that wraps around the legs and torso like a supportive second skeleton. It uses tilt sensors to detect the user's subtle shifts in balance, translating a lean forward into a steady, motorized step. When a person uses it, they aren't just moving. They are reclaiming their height, looking others in the eye, and feeling the rhythmic, mechanical heartbeat of a walk once more. It is a beautiful marriage of cold metal and warm spirit, providing a path where there was once a barrier and turning the logic of robotics into the poetry of motion. Even the air we exhale carries a story of our health, a story that is usually invisible and odorless to the human nose. Scientists have developed a technology known as the sniff phone, which uses incredibly sensitive nanosensors to smell the chemical markers of diseases. By simply breathing into a small attachment on a smartphone, these sensors can detect the subtle signatures of various conditions long before they might be noticed by traditional means. It is as if the ancient wisdom of a healer's intuition has been distilled into a digital form, catching the faint whispers of our cells on the soft breeze of our breath. It is a quiet, non-invasive way to look after one another, turning the simple, unconscious act of breathing into a moment of profound care and prevention. As we see how science can reach into the very breath and bone of our lives, we begin to realize that the energy for these innovations often comes from the world around us. We have looked deep inside the human form, and now we slowly lift our eyes upward toward the source of all life and warmth. The same sun that bakes the sands of the Negev and glints off the waves of the Mediterranean is being harnessed in ways that are both ancient and incredibly modern. We move from the intricate sensors of the laboratory to the vast open spaces where the golden light of the day is gathered to power the world below. The heat that warms your skin on a quiet afternoon is the same force that is being turned into a clean, steady stream of energy, a silent power that flows from the sky to the hearth. Imagine standing on a quiet balcony as the evening air begins to cool, looking out over the landscape as the day's heat slowly dissipates. If you were to look across the rooftops of almost any city or village in Israel, you would see a rhythmic, repeating pattern of white cylinders and dark rectangular panels tilted toward the southern sky. These are solar water heaters, a simple yet profound technology that has become a defining feature of the local architecture. In this land where the sun is a constant and generous companion, over 90% of homes harness its golden rays to provide warm water for their families. It is a quiet, daily interaction with the cosmos, a way of living that turns the raw heat of the sky into the gentle comfort of a home. There is a deep, settling peace in knowing that as you prepare for rest, the sun has already done its work, silently filling the pipes with warmth for the morning to come. This widespread embrace of the sun wasn't just a gradual change in habit, but a visionary step taken in the early 1980s. During a time of global reflection on how we use our planet's resources, a law was passed requiring almost all new residential buildings to include these solar thermal systems. It was a move toward national independence and a commitment to living in harmony with the environment. By mandating that the energy needed for a simple warm bath should come from the very light that shines down on the roof, the country turned a natural abundance into a reliable, everyday utility. It is a reminder of how thoughtful choices made decades ago can create a sustainable rhythm for generations, allowing the natural world to provide for our most basic needs without a sound or a shadow of waste. As we move away from the quiet neighborhoods and back into the vast, silent expanse of the Negev Desert, this relationship with the sun takes on a scale that is truly breathtaking. Here, rising out of the pale sand like a pillar of light, stands the Ashalim Power Station. It is a marvel of modern engineering, a place where the ancient power of the sun is gathered with poetic, mathematical precision. Surrounding a central tower that reaches over 200 meters into the blue are more than 50,000 mirrors, known as heliostats. These mirrors are not static. They move slowly, almost imperceptibly, throughout the day, tracking the sun's journey across the sky like a vast field of silver sunflowers. Each mirror is carefully angled to reflect the sunlight toward the top of the tower, concentrating the energy to create intense heat that is then used to generate electricity. From a distance, the top of the tower appears to glow with a brilliant, ethereal light. A man-made city held captive on the desert floor. In the stillness of the Negev, these 50,000 mirrors work in a silent, synchronized dance, capturing the fleeting energy of the day and storing it so that its power continues to flow even after the light has faded. There is something deeply meditative about the way these mirrors follow the light, a constant, patient gaze directed toward the heavens. As the day finally ends and the mirrors tilt back, resting in the cool blue shadows of the evening, our eyes are naturally drawn upward, following the line of the great solar tower toward the first faint glimmer of the stars. The tower, which spent the day drinking in the sun, now stands as a silent sentinel under the emerging canopy of the night. We begin to look past the reach of the tallest buildings and the highest mountains, past the thin veil of our atmosphere, and into the deep velvet darkness of the space beyond. The same curiosity that led us to capture the sun's heat now pulls our gaze further toward the silver moon and the distant planets that wander through the silence of the galaxy. We are no longer just looking at the land or the sky, but at the vast, quiet frontier that lies waiting among the stars. The night sky above the Negev is a deep velvety blue, a canvas that invites us to look beyond our own horizon and wonder what lies in the silent reaches of the cosmos. It is a quiet, humbling wonder to realize that this small stretch of land, so modest in its physical borders, has reached far beyond the clouds to touch the stars. Israel holds a unique and peaceful distinction in the long history of space exploration. It is the smallest country in the world to have designed, built, and successfully launched its own satellites into the orbit of our planet. While many nations look to the sky, few have the specialized tools to reach it entirely on their own. And there is a certain poetic beauty in the way such a tiny sliver of Earth has extended its reach into the infinite. In the early months of 2019, that reach extended even further, moving past the satellites that circle our world and setting its sights on our nearest neighbor. A small, delicate spacecraft named Bereshit began its lonely, rhythmic journey toward the moon. The name Bereshit is a soft, ancient word meaning "in the beginning," and it carried with it the hopes of a people who have always looked to the heavens for guidance. As it drifted through the dark, silent void, Bereshit made history, making Israel only the 7th country to ever successfully reach lunar orbit. For a few quiet days, the small craft circled the moon, a tiny sark of human ingenuity, passing over the ancient cratered landscape of the lunar surface, bathed in the pale reflected light of the sun. Though the mission did not end with a soft landing, its legacy remains there, resting in the eternal stillness of the moon's sea of serenity. Tucked safely inside the craft was a remarkable gift to the future, the Lunar Library. This was a collection of 30 million pages of human history, art, and culture, etched with microscopic precision onto tiny, thin discs of nickel. It contains the entirety of the English language Wikipedia, thousands of books, and the stories of countless cultures, all preserved in a form that can withstand the harsh radiation and extreme temperatures of space for billions of years. Imagine the quietude of that library, resting in the silver dust where no wind blows and no sound carries, a silent archive of everything we have ever known, waiting in the moonlight. As we drift back from the silent craters of the moon and through the soft, cooling layers of our own atmosphere, our perspective shifts from the celestial back to the terrestrial. We return to the solid, ancient ground, where the stories of the past are not written on nickel discs, but are carved into the very bones of the earth. The starlight that guided the spacecraft now catches on the edges of the mountains, illuminating the textures of the stone that have stood for millennia. We are coming home to the hills, to the cities that seem to have grown directly out of the earth itself, built from the very substance of the land. Our journey moves from the infinite black of space to the warm, golden glow of the stones that have cradled civilization since its earliest days. As we descend from the silent, silver craters of the moon and pass back through the soft, cooling layers of our own atmosphere, we find ourselves once again on solid ground. We are walking through the cool evening air of the Judean hills, where the very mountains seem to hum with a quiet, ancient energy. Here, the cities do not just sit upon the land, they are born from it, rising out of the earth in a way that feels inevitable and steady. If you were to reach out and touch the wall of a building here, your fingers would meet a surface that is both rough and comforting, the cool, solid presence of what is known the world over as Jerusalem stone. As you settle into the rhythm of your breath, imagine the texture of this stone. Scientifically, it is a specific type of limestone known as melek. The word itself is ancient, derived from a root meaning royal or kingly. It is a fitting name for a material that has been quarried from these very hills for thousands of years. This stone is a record of the Earth's deep history, formed long ago by the immense pressure of ancient prehistoric seas. It is incredibly durable, standing firm against the wind and the rain of centuries, yet it possesses a softness in its appearance that allows it to hold the light in a way few other materials can. Because this stone is so deeply tied to the identity of the land, there is a unique law that has shaped the appearance of the city for over 100 years. A municipal regulation requires that almost every building, whether it is a humble home, a modern apartment complex, or a grand public library, must be faced with this local limestone. This law ensures that the new always honors the old, creating a sense of unified timelessness that wraps around the city like a warm, heavy blanket. It prevents the jarring contrast of modern industrial materials from overwhelming the landscape, keeping the city's heart rooted firmly in the natural geology of the hills. As the sun begins to dip lower in the sky, a remarkable transformation occurs. The Meleki limestone has a unique property. It absorbs the long red rays of the setting sun and reflects them back in shifting shades of honey, cream, and pale apricot. For a few quiet moments each evening, the entire city seems to glow from within, as if the buildings themselves were radiating the warmth they collected throughout the day. This is why it is so often called the City of Gold. It is not a glittery or artificial gold, but a deep earthy radiance that feels peaceful and certain. The shadows grow long and blue against the golden walls, and the air turns still, inviting a sense of profound rest. But as we leave these quiet golden hills behind, the landscape begins to change. We move westward now, following the path of the sun as it travels toward the Mediterranean coast. The ancient heavy stone of the mountains slowly gives way to a different kind of beauty. The air becomes saltier, the breeze grows more humid, and the golden hues of the hills are replaced by a striking, brilliant white. We are approaching a city that looks not to the ancient past, but to the bright, clean lines of the modern world. A place where the architecture is as light and airy as the sea breeze itself. As we arrive at the shores of the Mediterranean, the air changes. It becomes lighter, carrying the gentle, humid scent of salt and sea spray. Here, nestled along the coastline, lies Tel Aviv, a city that stands in a beautiful, bright contrast to the heavy, ancient stone of the hills we just left behind. If Jerusalem is the city of gold, Tel Aviv is known far and wide as the White City. This name isn't just a poetic description. It refers to a remarkable collection of over 4,000 buildings, the largest concentration of Bauhaus-style architecture in the entire world. In the 1930s, as the world was changing rapidly, a group of architects arrived here with a new vision. They brought with them the principles of the Bauhaus movement from Germany, a philosophy that believed buildings should be functional, simple, and stripped of unnecessary ornament. They looked at the bright sun and the blue sea and decided to create a city that breathed with the landscape. These architects traded the dark, heavy materials of old Europe for light, airy structures that seemed to float above the ground. To live in this climate, however, the original Bauhaus designs had to be adapted. This led to a unique style often called the international style. As you visualize these buildings, see the smooth white surfaces and the elegant, rounded corners that mimic the curve of a ship or a gentle wave. One of the most distinctive features you would notice is the use of long, deep balconies. These aren't just for sitting. They are designed to cast long shadows over the walls below, acting as a natural cooling system by preventing the sun from hitting the windows directly. The windows themselves are often small and narrow, purposefully placed to allow for cross ventilation, pulling the cool sea breeze through the rooms while keeping the harsh glare of the midday sun at bay. Some buildings even feature what are known as thermometer windows, long, vertical strips of glass that run up the side of a stairwell, letting in just enough light to guide the way without heating up the interior. This thoughtful harmony between form and environment is why the White City was designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It represents a rare moment in history where an entire urban center was planned with a singular, modern vision, creating a sense of order and calm that still exists today. The streets here feel open and rhythmic, with buildings often raised on pillars or pilotis, which allow the air to circulate underneath and create shaded spaces for gardens and walkways. It is a city designed for movement, for light, and for the comfort of those who dwell within its white walls. But as the day continues to drift toward evening, we leave the bustling energy of the seaside cafes and the quiet, geometric streets of the White City. We begin to travel further north, following the curve of the Mediterranean coast. The flat coastal plains start to give way to rising slopes, and the horizon begins to lift. We are moving toward the majestic silhouette of Mount Carmel, where the white architecture of the city will soon be replaced by the lush, emerald green of terraced gardens that seem to touch the sky. As we continue our journey northward, leaving behind the geometric precision of the White City, the landscape begins to transform. The flat horizon of the coastal plain gives way to the rising majesty of Mount Carmel. Here, the city of Haifa clings to the mountainside, overlooking the deep blue of the Mediterranean. Nestled against this slope is one of the most tranquil sights in the world, the Baha'i Gardens. Imagine 19 grand terraces, perfectly symmetrical, cascading down the mountain like a staircase made of emerald and light. These gardens are a masterpiece of landscape design, stretching nearly a full kilometer from the top of the ridge down toward the harbor. As you visualize these terraces, see the vibrant colors, the deep reds of the geraniums, the bright yellows of the marigolds, and the soft, velvety greens of the manicured lawns. Everything is in balance. The paths are lined with crushed red stone and bright white pebbles, creating a rhythmic pattern that guides your eyes downward toward the golden dome shrine at the center. The silence here is heavy and sweet, broken only by the sound of your own slow rhythmic breathing. But beneath this visual beauty lies a quiet, sophisticated science. In a region where every drop of water is cherished, these gardens are a model of sustainability. They utilize a specialized zero-waste irrigation system designed to recycle every bit of moisture. Through a complex network of hidden pipes and sensors, the water that nourishes the upper terraces is collected, filtered, and redirected to the plants below. Not a single drop is allowed to run off or evaporate needlessly. This closed-loop system ensures that the lushness of the gardens can be maintained even during the driest months, providing a constant sense of life and coolness to the mountainside. It is a reminder of how nature and technology can exist in a state of perfect, quiet harmony. Mount Carmel itself is a place of deep, ancient quiet. It has long been known as the Evergreen Mountain because, unlike many other peaks in the region that turn golden or brown during the long, dry summer, Carmel remains stubbornly, beautifully green. This is the result of its unique ecosystem, dominated by dense forests of Aleppo pine and Kermes oak. These trees have evolved to withstand the Mediterranean sun, their roots reaching deep into the limestone soil to find hidden pockets of moisture. The air here is different. It is scented with the sharp, clean fragrance of pine resin and the earthy smell of the forest floor. Even in the height of August, the mountain provides a cool sanctuary, its canopy casting long, soft shadows over the winding trails. As we linger in the shade of these ancient oaks, feel the stillness of the mountain air. The world feels very old here, yet very much alive. Take a slow, deep breath, letting the scent of the pine forest settle into your mind, but the landscape is calling us further inland. We begin a slow, gentle descent from the heights of Mount Carmel, traveling away from the sea. The terrain begins to dip, falling lower and lower as we head toward the east. The air becomes slightly warmer, and the light takes on a softer, hazier quality. We are moving toward the Jordan Valley, descending toward a shimmering basin of blue that sits far below the level of the ocean. It is the Sea of Galilee, the lowest freshwater lake on earth, and it is here that we will find the lifeblood of the land. As we descend from the green heights of Mount Carmel, the road winds downward, dropping hundreds of meters through the sun-drenched hills of the Galilee. The air grows thicker and warmer, wrapping around you like a soft, heavy blanket. Then, through a gap in the basalt hills, it appears, a vast, shimmering expanse of sapphire blue nestled deep within a valley. This is the Sea of Galilee, known locally as Lake Kinneret. It is a place of profound stillness, a geographical wonder tucked into a cradle of volcanic rock. Take a moment to visualize the surface of this water perfectly flat and reflecting the pale blue of the sky. At approximately 210 meters below sea level, the Kinneret holds a unique distinction. It is the lowest freshwater lake on the entire planet. While the Dead Sea further south sits much lower, its waters are bitter and salt-heavy. Here, the water is sweet, cool, and clear. It is fed by the melting snows of Mount Hermon to the north, and by hidden underground springs that bubble up from the depths of the earth. Imagine the weight of the air here, pressing gently down on the surface of the water, keeping it calm and glass-like under the afternoon sun. The hills of the Golan Heights rise steeply to the east, casting long purple shadows across the water as the day begins to fade. This lake is much more than a beautiful landmark. It is the vital heart of the region's water system. For decades, a massive engineering feat known as the National Water Carrier has served as the country's primary artery. This network of giant pipes, tunnels, and open canals draws water from these northern shores and carries it across the landscape, uphill and through mountains, all the way to the dry sands of the Negev Desert in the south. It is an invisible circulatory system, turning parched earth into blooming orchards and providing life to millions of homes. When you feel the coolness of a breeze near a fountain or see the green leaves of a farm in the desert, there is a high probability that the water responsible once rippled against the pebbled shores of this ancient lake. Because of this deep reliance, the Kinneret occupies a special place in the collective heart of the people. The water level of the lake is a matter of national obsession, a pulse that everyone monitors with care. During the rainy winter months, the daily news often concludes with a report on how many centimeters the lake has risen. There is a red line, a critical threshold that the water must stay above to protect the lake's delicate ecological balance. When the winter rains are heavy and the water level nears the top of the dams, a sense of quiet joy spreads through the land as if the entire country is exhaling a collective sigh of relief. It is a reminder of how closely human life is tied to the rhythms of the natural world. As the sun begins to dip behind the western hills, the surface of the Kinneret turns to liquid gold. The small rhythmic lap of the water against the dark basalt stones is the only sound in the twilight. It is a slow, steady heartbeat that invites you to let go of the day's thoughts. But the water does not stay here forever. At the southern tip of the lake, near a place of quiet reeds and overhanging willow trees, the Kinneret finds an outlet. The water begins to move again. Flowing out from the lake and narrowing into a winding path that carves its way through the valley floor. We follow this gentle, persistent current as it leaves the stillness of the lake behind and enters the legendary channel of the Jordan River, beginning a long journey through the deepest crack in the earth's surface. As the water leaves the Sea of Galilee, it enters the channel of the Jordan River. It is a name that echoes through centuries of history and layers of tradition. Yet, the physical reality of the river is surprisingly humble and quiet. If you were to stand on its banks, you might be struck by how intimate it feels. In many sections, the Jordan River is remarkably narrow, often only a few meters wide. It does not rush with the roar of a great canyon river. Instead, it meanders slowly, hidden behind thickets of tall, swaying reeds and silver-leaved oleander. The water moves with a gentle, persistent rhythm, carving a green ribbon through a landscape that becomes increasingly arid as it travels south. This quiet river follows a path dictated by forces far older than any civilization. It flows through the heart of the Great Rift Valley, a massive geological fissure in the Earth's crust. This rift is a staggering feature of our planet's design, a long, deep trench where the tectonic plates are slowly pulling apart. It begins far to the north and stretches thousands of kilometers, reaching down through the Red Sea and deep into the heart of Africa, eventually ending near Mozambique. To stand in this valley is to stand in a giant cradle of the earth, a place where the crust is thin and the history of the world is written in the layers of rock and sediment. The Jordan River simply follows this natural trough, guided by the gravity of the rift. The river's journey is a one-way path with a singular, quiet conclusion. Because it flows into the deepest part of this geological depression, the water eventually reaches the Dead Sea. Here, the journey ends. Because this is the lowest point on the surface of the earth, there is no outlet for the water to continue toward the ocean. Instead, the water remains in the deep basin, where the intense heat of the desert sun causes it to slowly evaporate into the haze. As the pure water rises into the air as vapor, it leaves behind everything it has carried from the mountains and the lakes, the salts, the magnesium, the calcium, and the potassium. Over thousands of years, this process has created a concentration of minerals so dense that they form white, crystalline crusts along the shore, shimmering like snow against the dark blue of the water. These minerals are the fundamental elements of the land, the raw building blocks of the earth itself. They represent the essence of the soil and the sea concentrated by the sun and the slow passage of time. Just as these salts and minerals define the geology of the valley, they also hint at the deeper, more sensory side of the region. The earth provides the foundation, but it is the gifts of the soil, the herbs, the seeds, and the ancient crops that bring the landscape to life in a different way. From the salt of the sea to the richness of the earth, we move from the quiet wonders of geology to the warm, inviting aromas of the kitchen, where the flavors of the land are transformed into something shared and cherished. The transition from the minerals of the earth to the flavors of the kitchen is a natural one, for the soil that holds such ancient history is the same soil that provides a bounty of simple, nourishing ingredients. In this land where the earth is so carefully tended, The food becomes a quiet reflection of the landscape's generosity. Perhaps no dish is more iconic or more deeply loved than hummus. This smooth, creamy blend of chickpeas, tahini, lemon, and garlic is a cornerstone of the daily rhythm. It is so woven into the fabric of life that the people of Israel consume an incredible amount of it, over 30,000 tons every single year. Imagine the scale of that. Thousands upon thousands of bowls shared in quiet morning markets and bustling evening kitchens, a soft, grounding presence on almost every table. It is more than just a meal. It is a shared language of flavor that remains constant through the passing seasons. At the heart of a good hummus and many other regional dishes is tahini. This thick, velvety paste is made from toasted and ground sesame seeds, and its preparation is an ancient art. While it feels indulgent and smooth on the tongue, it is also a quiet powerhouse of nutrition. Scientists often classify tahini as a superfood because it is exceptionally dense in essential minerals. A single serving is packed with calcium and iron, providing the body with the very elements we find in the earth, now transformed into a form that sustains and strengthens. The process of grinding the tiny hard seeds into such a smooth, flowing liquid is a beautiful transformation, turning a small, dry seed into a rich, golden source of energy that has sustained people in this region for thousands of years. Alongside these rich, earthy flavors, there is always a burst of crisp freshness. The Israeli salad is a staple so constant it is almost rhythmic in its presence. It consists primarily of cucumbers and tomatoes, but the secret lies in the meticulous preparation. The vegetables are diced into incredibly small, uniform cubes. The smaller the dice, the more the flavors are said to meld together. This refreshing mixture is served at nearly every meal, even appearing on the breakfast table alongside fresh cheeses and warm bread. There is something deeply grounding about starting the day with the cool, clean crunch of vegetables grown in the sun-drenched soil, a reminder of the land's vitality even in the earliest, quietest hours of the morning. These flavors, the creaminess of the tahini, the earthiness of the chickpeas, and the brightness of the fresh vegetables are not just about sustenance. They are about the moments of connection that happen when people sit down together to share what the land has provided. The act of breaking bread and passing a bowl of salad is a quiet, universal gesture of community. As we look at the food on the table, we begin to see the hands that prepared it and the many different paths that brought these people together. The story of the land is ultimately a story of its people, a vibrant and intricate tapestry woven from many different threads, coming together to create a culture that is as diverse and complex as the geography itself. This tapestry of people is woven from more than 100 different ethnicities and cultures, each bringing their own traditions, melodies, and histories to this small corner of the earth. It is a place where the world truly meets, a quiet gathering of heritage from nearly every continent. You might hear the soft lilt of dozens of different languages in a single afternoon, yet there is a shared sense of belonging that binds these many threads together. This diversity is not just a modern occurrence. It is a continuation of a story that has been unfolding for millennia. as people have traveled across these hills and valleys, leaving behind pieces of their own journeys to be discovered by those who came after. Because there is such a deep desire to remember and honor these journeys, the landscape is dotted with centers of learning and reflection. It is a remarkable scientific fact that this country has the highest number of museums per capita in the entire world. These are quiet, contemplative spaces where the air is still and the lighting is soft. In these halls, the artifacts of the past, from ancient clay lamps to modern scientific breakthroughs, are kept safe, allowing the stories of the people to live on. Whether it is a small gallery in a rural village or a vast national archive, these museums act as the collective memory of the land, ensuring that nothing of value is ever truly lost to the passage of time. Even the way that time itself is measured here feels connected to the natural world and the rhythms of the heavens. The country operates on a lunar solar calendar, a beautiful and ancient system that seeks to harmonize the phases of the moon with the cycles of the sun. While many parts of the world follow a strictly solar path, this calendar watches the silver glow of the moon to mark the beginning of each month. Because the lunar year is shorter than the solar year, the calendar gracefully adjusts, adding a leap month 7 times every 19 years to ensure that the spring festivals always fall when the flowers are in bloom. This means that holidays do not sit on fixed dates in the Gregorian calendar. Instead, they drift softly from year to year, appearing like the moon itself, sometimes early, sometimes late, but always returning in their proper season. It is a way of living that acknowledges the shifting light in the sky and the steady, breathing pulse of the earth. As we begin to slow our journey even further, we can feel the weight of these layers of time and culture pressing gently into the soil. The pace of the day is winding down, and the many voices and stories we have encountered begin to merge into a single, peaceful hum. We have seen how the ancient stones and the modern innovations work together, creating a bridge between what was and what is yet to be. In the quiet that remains, we find ourselves reflecting on the vastness of this small land, where every hill has a name and every valley holds a secret, waiting in the stillness for the stars to appear. Our journey through this storied land is now coming to a gentle close, like the sun dipping below the western horizon of the Mediterranean Sea. We have walked together through a landscape where the very stones tell stories of a time before memory, yet the air is filled with the hum of a future being built, one discovery at a time. It is a rare and beautiful thing to find a place where ancient geology and future-facing science live so closely together. Tucked into the same sun-warmed hills, we have seen how the parched earth of the Negev is nurtured by the brilliance of human ingenuity, and how the salt-laden waters of the Dead Sea exist just a short distance from the lush, green springs of the Galilee. In this small corner of the world, barely larger than a single state in many other nations, there is a breathtaking concentration of life and variety. It is a remarkable scientific reality that within these narrow borders, the Earth offers up almost every ecosystem imaginable. In the far north, the peaks of Mount Hermon are often capped with heavy white snow, where the air is crisp and the wind whistles through high mountain passes. And yet, if you were to travel south, passing through fertile valleys and rolling plains, you would eventually find yourself at the edge of the Red Sea, where tropical coral reefs bloom in vibrant colors beneath the warm, clear waves. To move from a snowy mountain to a tropical sea in the span of a few hours is a testament to the incredible diversity of our planet, gathered here into one small, precious space. As we reflect on these wonders, the migrating birds, the ancient olive trees, the innovative sensors, and the glowing limestone, we can feel a sense of quiet awe. There is a peace to be found in the accumulation of knowledge, a comfort in knowing that the world is full of such intricate details and enduring mysteries. These facts are not just pieces of information. They are the steady beats of a heart that has been pulsing for thousands of years. They remind us that the earth is constant, that history is deep, and that even in the most arid desert, there is life waiting to bloom. Let these thoughts settle now, like the cool night air over the dunes of the Embark. Let the rhythm of the stories we have shared guide you toward a deep and restful sleep. There is nothing more to do and nowhere else to be. The stars are bright, the land is still, and the world is at rest. May you find peace in the stillness of these facts and the warmth of the journey we have taken together. Thank you for wandering through this land of wonders with me. Sleep now, knowing that the earth remains steady and ancient beneath the quiet sky. Good night, good night, good night.